Released on the 18th of September 1951 and starring Michael Rennie, Patricia Neal, Hugh Marlowe, Sam Jeffy, Bill Gray, and Lock Martin. Directed by Robert Wise, based on Harry Bates' novel Farewell to the Master. After a flying saucer lands at the National Mall in Washington, D.C., the United States Army quickly surrounds it with soldiers and tanks. A humanoid in a spacesuit emerges, announcing that he comes in peace and with goodwill. While the alien is opening a small metallic device, he is shot and wounded by a nervous soldier. A large robot emerges and quickly disintegrates the soldier's weapons, including tanks. The alien Klaatu orders the robot Gort to desist. Klaatu explains that the now broken device was a gift for the President of the United States to study life on the other planets before taken to hospital. The Army is unable to open or blast its way into the saucer. Gort stands outside, silent and unmoving. The President's secretary visits Klaatu, who relates that his message must be delivered to all the world's leaders simultaneously, but is informed that it is impossible. When Klaatu proposes spending time among the humans to understand better their unreasonable suspicions and attitudes, the proposal is rejected. Klaatu escapes and acquires a suit and case from the hospital laundry for someone named Carpenter before slipping off into the city and finds a room at a boarding house to rent. Among the residents is a young widow named Helen Benson and her son Bobby. Helen's boyfriend, Tom Stevens, becomes jealous of Klaatu. Bobby takes Klaatu on a tour of the city, including the Lincoln Memorial and a visit to his father's grave in the Arlington National Cemetery. Klaatu learns that most of the dead are soldiers killed in wars. When Klaatu asks Bobby who is the greatest living person, Bobby suggests Professor Bernhardt. Visiting the scientist at his home, they find him away. But peering through a window, Klaatu sees Bernhardt's blackboard is covered with an equation and he is attempting to solve the three-body problem. To leave a calling card, Klaatu enters the room and solves the equation, giving his contact information to the housekeeper. That evening, a government agent escorts Klaatu to Bernhardt. Klaatu tells Bernhardt the people of the other planets are concerned about Earth's aggressiveness, now that humanity has developed rudimentary atomic power, and that if Klaatu's message is ignored, Earth could be eliminated. Bernhardt agrees to gather scientists from around the world at the saucer. He suggests Klaatu prove a demonstration of his power beforehand. Unaware that Bobby has followed him, Klaatu returns to his spaceship. After returning home, Bobby tells Helen, who does not believe him, but Tom is suspicious. The next day, starting at noon East Coast time, all electrical equipment on the Earth ceases to function for 30 minutes, except for essential services such as hospitals and aircraft in flight. Learning that Bobby followed him the previous night, Klaatu visits Helen at work, reveals his mission and asks her not to betray him. Helen asks Tom to keep Klaatu's secret, but he refuses to listen and alerts the military. Hoping that Bernhardt can hide Klaatu until the evening, Helen and Klaatu rush to Bernhardt's in a taxi. Klaatu instructs Helen that if anything should happen to him, she must say to Gort, Klaatu Barada Nikto. The army tracks them in their taxi. Klaatu is shot and killed. His body is placed in a cell. Helen recites the phrase to Gort. Gort then carries her into the saucer. Gort retrieves Klaatu's body and revives him, though Klaatu tells Helen his revival is only temporary. Exiting the spaceship with Klaatu and Gort, Helen joins Bernhardt among the gathered scientists. Klaatu tells the scientists that an interplanetary organization has created a police force of invincible robots like Gort. In matters of aggression, we have given them absolute power over us, Klaatu concludes. Your choice is simple. Join us and live in peace, or pursue your present cause and face obliteration. With a final wave to Helen, Klaatu and Gort then depart. Does it still work today? Undoubtedly, though with a slight caveat that it is a Cold War-made movie, and so though not a major underlining subplot of the film, the conclusion does have a pointed message to it, which can be interpreted two ways depending upon your personal bias, which in a way is why it still works so well today. Shot in black and white, which was the common format before 1967, in 3:7:1 ratio, and though has a score to enhance emotions of certain scenes, The film has a documentary vibe about it, keeping away from any sensationalism or big, over-the-top spectacular scenes, which would be common today, which would both miss the point and nullify the message the screenwriter was attempting to impart. And because of this, you get a more natural acting style from the cast compared to other films of the time, creating a low-key touch to the drama that, despite the high stakes, remains remarkably thoughtful with its look with non-judgmental eyes what it is to be human, well, at least from an American moral point of view. This is where the Cold War and therefore Russia and China are alluded to as being the reasons why the leaders of the world won't come together to hear Klatu's message, and why it is a shift towards a scientific community to represent humanity. First time watching the moment the world just stops is reminiscent in a way our world stood still during the pandemic, has the same unnatural, unsettling feeling, deeper and stronger than watching buildings being destroyed or waves of alien nanobot bees ripping iconic buildings off the face of the planet. The feeling of powerlessness, and that there is a higher power over us, which revolution nor ballot box can overthrow, is one, if not the most humbling moments in all of cinema. The conclusion I refer to is a bit clunky, and could be read in more than one way. It largely comes from the fact it's a Cold War period movie. Not set in the Cold War, not like a spy film, but because politically it shapes how the narrative will unfold, and so at the end it depends on your own personal bias how it's interpreted. With tensions of World War III ever present at the time, the idea of a force so overwhelming that could smite us all, and by giving ourselves over to its benevolence, is where the film jars a little. Seeing it as a Christian metaphor, with Klaatu as Jesus and a universal security being God, and living on and staying on the earth doing what we like being our free will, makes sense when you put the rest of all the film's subtext together, such as him having the name as Carpenter and moving out into the world with no place to stay. However, the force to deliver and the idea that there is a federation of planets, similar to the UN, gives it a feeling of state control as the ultimate power, and so can feel, if you don't accept the religious angle, as a call to more state control over our lives, and feels almost more communist in a way, as it kind of suggests that in order to stay safe, we have to lose our freedoms. This can be jarring compared to the rest of the film, though of course the religious reading is only scary if you want the state to do all your thinking and protect you, rather than take responsibility for your own actions, which is the conclusions sort of attempting to say, as we would in actual reality be smiting ourselves if we ever had a nuclear war. So where you believe in God, Gort or Marx, the result is the same, so the message resonates, if not a little clumsily delivered, in the abrupt ending, as I feel more about what you could gain, not wiping the world out, should have been included, but that maybe being too close to the beginning of the atomic age and the Second World War, still in the forefront of that generation's memory, a clunky ending, brisk and direct to the point, was probably the right approach at the time, as particularly in America, they already had Paradise Gained. Is it worth watching today? Yes, even if only from the historical aspect. It's interesting to see how America viewed itself and its place as the moral light of the world's police force. After Klaatu has circled the planet, it's the US he stops at to introduce our planet to the rest of the universe, which is why the conclusion back then would have made so much more sense, and would have been a comfort rather than a concern that it could be conceived as today.